Welcome to a new season of Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily Taylor. I'm a mediator, developmental psychologist, conflict resolution teacher, and mom of 5. And just like you, I've had my fair share of conflict. Over time, I've realized conflict isn't something to fear. It's simply part of life. What matters is how we respond, and if we have the tools to handle it with confidence and care. And that's what this podcast is all about. In each episode, you'll hear me coach someone through a real conflict they're facing. You'll listen as they share their story, and I'll guide them towards solutions that align with their goals and values. Along the way, I'll point out skills and strategies you can use in your own life, whether at work, at home, or in your other relationships. So whether you've been with us since season 1 or you're brand new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's jump in. Today, I'm coaching Laura. She has a new coworker we're going to call Hope, and there's a conflict brewing that's made things really uncomfortable at work. So we're going to explore some of Laura's options for addressing it. Laura, it's so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What's been going on with Hope? What's the situation?
So I have been working at the company for a little bit longer. Prior to hiring her, I was doing the job. So once this person got hired, I was elated and relieved because I don't have to carry the burden of this role anymore. One of the struggles that we had during the handoff is I have been at the company for a long time, so people know me. I'm a very social, chatty person, so there's a good rapport with most of the people in person. And this other person is not quite as extroverted, maybe. So it's taking a little bit longer for people to get to know them and have the similar interactions. They also tend to work more remote, and I really like the social of being in person. So when I'm in person, people will approach me about this old role and be like, hey, can you help me with this? So as much as I had tried to pull out of it and hand it off, I was still getting brought in. And Hope felt like that was just really conflictual that I would continue to still be involved. And she asked me regularly, why are you still involved in this? So I kind of worked through some of that, and it got to where I was just initiating conversations between the other people and this person, trying to remove myself without leaving anyone hanging. Well, recently I got put back to be the project manager of a project that she is support for in the system. As that happened, there was some friction there, and she wasn't thrilled about it. And I had even asked her team leader, I'm like, hey, if she wants to be the project manager, I don't need to do that. But the team leader's like, no, it looks like the people and organization of moving the people forward is not her strength. So we would like you to manage that piece. And then that next week was when I came into work, and we were headed out to get a team lunch. And I said, hey, where's Hope? And he said, oh, she decided not to come today because you were coming, and she felt like it would be too conflictual. And so I didn't realize it was to a point where she was avoiding being in office where I was. So that's kind of where I had the epiphany that I was like, okay, this is something I need to solve. And I just don't really know where to go with it. I'm not sure what I did originally to offend her or how to go back and try to fix it without that disingenuous apology of hey, I'm sorry. I don't know why, but I'm sorry for whatever I did that bothers you. So
Okay, so you have to collaborate with each other.
Yes.
Maybe first off, just tension is normal, right?
Okay.
We have the goal of collaboration, but what's tricky is you also have different functions, and some functions actually, it's kind of like I have teenagers. I want my kids to be safe. My kids want to be independent. There's a tension going back and forth because they don't want me to tell them what to do, but I want them to be safe. Sometimes even whether again, even if you don't call someone a boss, because it sounds like you are kind of a boss, there's a natural tension, right?
Yes.
Wanting to please, but then also not wanting to be micromanaged from the.
As you were talking about tension being normal, I think that I had kind of a fantasy idea that maybe that was not real. You could have situations where there was no tension. I can't think of any in my head, but I think maybe my brain thought, hey, that's the goal. So get to where you are no longer tension for people. And then I think about
Wait. I'm going to stop you there. You just said that you are no longer tension for other people.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about what do you mean by that?
I think that's what I've decided in this trend of my life is that I am the tension for other people. I worry about coming across aggressive or intimidating, if that makes sense. I feel like I've heard that a lot in my life, and I don't want to be that. Again, I don't know the roots of why, but that's kind of what it feels like. So then I'm trying to shift the ways that I show up for certain people. And I think that's also part of why I'm intrigued in this learning process, because I don't know that that's the solution either. I don't know that it is I think I believe that it's a me thing, but I don't know that that's the right belief, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping to learn something that will say, actually, it was a skill problem. If you do it this way, then this might get better. And maybe it's their skill problem and it's not my skill problem. And then I also just have to get comfortable with the tension. And I haven't been so far. So
forgive me for stopping you midstream. I just thought it was interesting. And why I brought it up is because sometimes there's like the current situation that kind of exposes maybe a pattern or a story that you tell yourself. Like, I'm the source of this tension. And I heard you say maybe it's a skill thing. What else do you think it could be? Like, if someone has tension, what are the possibilities why someone would have tension?
So as far as the people thing, I don't know that I have a great answer for that. But if I put it into like a science term, the tectonic plates can either pull apart and it cause a rift, or they can build mountains, right? And either way is tension in order to build or create something or to remove something. So I know that tension has a purpose to either grow or destruct, I guess. But I'm not sure how to apply that to people.
Okay. And you may be sitting here, Laura, and be like, okay, I know. I've just been wanting to resolve this, right? But we take the time up front, at least to try to figure out some of your main goals and a little bit the story you've been telling yourself about, I'm the tension or whatever that is, because it plays into what we think are our options, right? If I'm the tension, I have to apologize.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like, that's a natural byproduct of believing I'm the tension is I've got to apologize for being me.
And it sounds like there's no other solution other than to not be me, because that's the tension. So we have to work through it to figure out what other options I have.
Okay, friends, this is a key insight for Laura. And I'm wondering how you think about the tension in your own life. I'm always talking on this podcast about how conflict is natural. It happens whenever people bump up against seemingly incompatible goals. And it's also natural to find conflict uncomfortable. Sometimes we're inclined to think the only way to fix it is to set aside our own needs or goals, which can be the smart approach in low-stakes situations. But in important conflicts, I think it's always better to try for results that honor our needs and theirs. So the first thing I hope you take away from today's session is that tension, just like the tango, takes two. So resist the urge to blame yourself or downplay your own needs, even if you feel embarrassed that you have needs or wonder if they're reasonable. Journal it out if you need to, and don't stop at the first draft. Often there's an even bigger need hiding underneath the one that's the most obvious. And then turn the tables and identify what the other person's needs are in the conflict. What's motivating them? What are their goals? This can be tough, but with a little creativity, it's doable. Laura needs to be able to work in a confident, efficient way without walking on eggshells around her coworker or feeling like the tension is all her fault. Let's get back to the session. If we can switch gears now to think about hope, what we're going to try to do, and just be game with me for a minute, is I want you to pretend as if you were Hope in answering some of my questions. So what we're trying to do when I have you role play as if you were the other person you're in a conflict with is to try to see if there's anything we can discover about what she might need or want that hasn't been super clear to you.
Okay.
I'm just a person just chatting with her, okay? So we'll just start the conversation.
Okay.
Hope. Sounds like there's been some tension. What are the things that are bugging you right now?
I'm frustrated that I got hired for a role and they're using Laura as the resource instead of coming to me. I'm afraid that it's going to look bad for the job that I'm doing if they continue to go to someone else.
Okay. You're frustrated. Are you kind of worried that people don't think you're doing the job?
Yes. Yeah, I would think that there's some concern there that maybe people will think that I'm not trying hard enough or that I'm not succeeding. The process also looks different than it has at other companies that I've worked for, and I'm struggling with that. The other companies are very ticket-based and organized, and this feels very loose, and I'm struggling to manage the loose reach-outs and things.
Okay. What are the things that seem loose that you would want to tighten up?
I would love it if I could get every request to be submitted in a ticket and to go through me instead of some coming in as tickets, some chats, some verbal conversations, and some just going to different people on the team. I wish they would come directly to me.
Okay, so just in general, more organization, having kind of a clear system.
Yes, I think.
Okay. What have you done so far to kind of work through that?
I put out some training information to get people to submit tickets. I've tried to talk to the people on the team that I feel like are fielding a lot of those tickets and questions and ask them to submit tickets as well. I do think one thing I could work on is probably submitting the tickets myself as people reach out other ways versus just being frustrated that there are no tickets being created.
Okay. I know you're frustrated and kind of worried about your job. What have the tensions really been with Laura? Like, what are you concerned about there?
I'm concerned that she's connecting and has a different rapport with people than I've been able to figure out. I'm concerned that I'm going to have to fill the role in the same way that she did by being in person and engaging with people in the way that she did. And I do my best work by myself or remote versus in person.
Are you getting as much done as you need to by working remotely?
I feel like I'm definitely behind in my work on a regular basis. I feel like I am getting a lot done, especially compared to the work that was happening in this role previously, but I don't know that I'm getting enough done to please the people around me because the requests continue to keep coming and they seem to be rushed in urgency.
Okay, so it's pretty stressful lately.
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah. Is it too much for you?
I think so. We just reached out to hire an assistant to help support me, but I'm frustrated by her work schedule. She's in a different country, so she's working at a different time than me. So it feels like I'm doing a lot of relaying versus just handing things off to her.
Okay, so it's not relieving as much of the pressure as you thought it would.
Correct.
Okay. What do you think you need to get stuff done in a better way? Besides people, getting their tickets in.
I think more communication and clarity. I think there might be room for me to adjust to the way that this new company works because when I started here, they warned me that they function very differently than other companies. But I also think that maybe there's room for them to change in some of their processes as well so that they can fit some of the structure and organization that I need to do my best work.
Okay. If things were going well at work, what would it look like for you?
I would be working remote most days of the week. I would be in office only for the important meetings, and people would reach out to me with their problems via ticket and respond as I responded to them, and I wouldn't have to focus on multiple forms of communication.
What are you willing to do to kind of work on these issues?
That's a hard question because that's the one that I don't. Okay, so I'm just going to side note back to myself for a minute. I don't have an answer for that one because I feel like her instinct is to just avoid them and say, I've done my part and I can't do anything else and I can't. I don't know.
That's the stump. That's the stump. Well,
yes,
maybe
that's
the question,
yes.
right? You are amazing, by the way.
Oh,
I'm like,
you.
I don't know if you do acting or whatever, but
no.
Anything stand out to you while you were talking as if you were Hope?
I do think I kind of gained some empathy for that transition. Like I said, I've been at the company for a long time. So for a little bit, I think I may have lost my empathy in how hard it is to transition from other roles that have so much structure and so much expectation of like, this is your to-do list, do it in this box and don't waver. Because I've been here for, 6+ years, it feels really easy to just be like, oh, this is the way it works here. And so that was one thing that stuck out to me is maybe I need to give her a little, and I don't know that I'm not giving her grace, but maybe she feels like I'm not giving her grace to adjust. And then I also think that maybe she also feels as lost as I do in how to resolve it because she's, again, worked for companies that have more structure. So as we're working through these things, if you don't have people that are naturally leaning in and there's no structure to force them to lean in and you're not a natural communicator, it could be really hard to know where to go with and how to solve that or how to talk to someone or that type of thing. And then you're also the newbie. So then you already feel kind of out of place because you're the new person. So that also could possibly create an insecurity of like, hey, I don't have people in my corner per se, whereas someone that's been there longer has a whole group of people in their corner. So you feel like you're already the odd one out. And maybe she's struggling with some of that perspective.
Those are really good insights, right? Grace to adjust, maybe feeling as lost with how to resolve this as you're feeling.
Yes.
And being the new person and maybe being hesitant to even bring up that you're struggling.
Yes.
Trying to show that you actually can do the job.
Yes.
But it sounds like if, again, our imagined Hope
yes.
and you wanting to resolve this. Like, is it fair to say you don't see it as much a question of motivation on her part as just frustration?
Yeah, I don't think she wants to stay in it or is unbothered by it. I'm sure that she also has no idea how to work through it either. So I do feel pretty confident in that. Again, I don't know why she feels hesitation to come communicate with me. That's where I think my gap is.
Okay. All right, friends, even though it's awkward, I almost always do some kind of role play in a conflict coaching session. Sometimes I just have the person practice a difficult conversation. But often I ask them to take the voice of the other person in the conflict because it's a really powerful way to discover what we're missing. Sometimes people will resist because they'll say, I have no idea what the other person is thinking. That's the whole problem. And usually I just gently say, it's okay. Just use your imagination and try. Because the idea isn't to read the other person's mind or perfectly predict what they'll say. It's just to feel some sense of empathy. And crazy as it sounds, this always works. Just having a conversation about a problem as if you are them shifts your perspective enough to see a new need or motivation you hadn't considered before. And with that new idea comes new options for addressing the conflict. Give it a try. Ask a trusted friend if you can experiment speaking from the conflict partner's vantage point. Or if that's too awkward, do it alone in the mirror. Or you could try writing it down. Pretend you're them and you're writing a letter to a close friend about the conflict. Make it Oscar-worthy and see what it reveals to you. Let's get back to Laura and see if she has any new thoughts on how she might start a conversation with Hope that could begin to resolve their conflict. I think it might be interesting to move into what we call the brainstorming section. So typically we try to identify needs, and we actually, like, I'm making a list as you've been talking, the things that you would like, kind of a peace at work. Tension may be the normal. And I even say conflict is kind of a constant, right? Just differences of style, communication. Contention is really where we get concerned. Contention is where you have hostility and you're angry or you have contempt for someone else. We don't want to go there. But if conflict is normal, that we have differences of style, opinion, then we just have to work on it. So now the pragmatic part is, okay, for you guys to stop spinning your wheels with each other and have a solution, we're going for it. We're just going to brainstorm as many ideas as possible, as many approaches to at least communicating and developing a process that will work for the two of you. Does that make sense? I could put number one is you go talk to her one-on-one, right?
The first answer I have is ask her
what
we could do different or what she feels is missing.
And it sounds like you haven't done that?
I have not.
Okay.
Because all of our other situations have been through other people, which is the second one that I would list, is we talk to other sources and try to get suggestions or navigate. And I think we've both done that, and that has been unsuccessful.
Okay, so you could go directly to Hope and brainstorm a solution. You could go through an intermediary. And those are both verbal discussion. What other options do you have?
I'm trying to figure out one that doesn't involve verbally communicating, though. Trying to get to that next.
What about, we're just seeding ideas. What about you could email her with your grievances, seeking communication, right?
Okay.
You could email, you could have a Zoom, you could do phone. What are some other options? Say you're in a conflict with a sibling or a friend.
You could invite them to lunch. You could send them a chat or a text. You could write a little card that hey, I've noticed some friction in us. I apologize for my parts of it. Maybe you don't apologize. Maybe you just say, I've noticed some friction. I'd love to work through it.
I'm going to put A, B as apologize, don't apologize. Because those are options, right? Yes. Even if they feel like they're just your personality.
Yes.
Those are options because, again, this is quoting a biblical scripture, but it's one of my favorites for conflict resolution. Jesus said, be as wise as serpents, as harmless as doves. Meaning, my intention is to do good, but my wisdom is, that didn't work very well. Or I think that person might misinterpret me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you relying on some of your experience and knowledge of the other to use wisdom. Maybe an apology is not what you offer first, but say she expresses a grievance that you, during a conversation, take as legitimate.
then I can apologize.
Then you can, does that make sense?
Yes.
So
Yep.
instead of like, one choice is to lead with an apology. And
the
that's
other
what,
option is to wait till it's needed.
or you have it in the back of your mind and you're in the thing and you're like, you know what? I don't feel like apologizing. Like, I don't think an apology is warranted. So that's the preparation that we're doing right now is you're prepping for communication, but you have multiple tools. And that's what you had mentioned before is like, well, I know how to do this. This is what I usually do. But if we do what we know how to do and we don't like the result, that's where we're expanding, right? Yes. So is there anything else you could think of doing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. No, we're good. I'm just going to read the list one more time. And just if anything else comes to your mind, let's note it. One is go directly to Hope and brainstorm a solution, like actually talk with her straight at, well, like, let's talk about the conflict. Okay.
Yes.
You could go through an intermediary. You could email her. You could have a Zoom meeting. You could phone her. You could invite her to lunch. You could chat or text. You could write a card. You could apologize, not apologize, kind of depending on the situation. When we were talking before, you said you've already gone through an intermediary and that didn't work very well.
I mean, I feel like if it had worked well, the conflicts or friction that we've felt from the start would not have continued to escalate. There might be a different mediator person that could do it a different service than the person we've been going.
So that option of a different intermediary is still there.
Yes. I do think that could potentially be an option as well.
Okay. One thing, and this is, I try as much as possible not to seed too many ideas, but one thing also is to have a direct conversation but have another person present.
Okay.
Okay. Or picking some kind of other context so you're not at work where you're having a conversation, right? Those are just kind of add-ons to that.
Okay. I like that. So you have the third person, but rather than using them as a messenger, they're just kind of another presence in the room that can see both sides or just be present, even if they don't really see both sides. But
it has to be the appearance and probably the reality of someone being neutral or not on one side. Or say you're feeling comfortable and confident and you're like, I'm fine if, whoever your chosen person is, they're all options.
Okay. And that might be a better security for her anyway. Okay.
So one other thing, because of your background, feeling like you're the tension, is it's very natural to want conflict just to go away, to get the tension to go away. And it sounds like you have a little bit of a pattern of, if the tension is about you, you kind of morph yourself. But what I'm hoping, and just as we select maybe an initial plan, is you have needs and she has needs. This is more of a negotiation than you changing everything about yourself so that she doesn't have tension with you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep. And I feel like sometimes that happens for me because I want to rush to the other side of it faster. And the fastest way to get there is what I can control, right? But I do think it ends up in the long run being a disservice to myself and the relationship in other scenarios that I could see that happening in.
Yeah, I just bring it up because what's interesting, again, not that this has to be this deep friendship, but in a colleague relationship, typically what works best is to have reciprocity. That means she gives, you give. And it's kind of like goes back and forth. So we're trying to select a situation where you feel like you could address your needs and still she could address her needs. So it's not like you going in groveling and saying like, whatever you want, I'll do. What's seeming like it might be a good option?
I really like the idea of having the third party in there. I actually am thinking of, I think Jim would be a really good person for that. One, he's her team leader, so she can feel validated that he has her back. But he's also someone that I feel like has been very good at being neutral and very much gives everybody the benefit of the doubt, is good at seeing both perspectives, that type of thing. So I kind of like that idea, just like, hey, let's get in a room together and let's talk it out. I'm a little bit nervous. One, that it just won't get anywhere. Like she'll just say, oh, everything's fine. So I have a little bit of a nervousness there. And then just, I think, learning and processing through a lot of this, like what to apologize for, what not, acknowledging that it's okay to have needs or preferences.
Okay, so with that, one other thought is there is personal preparation to adequately represent your known needs.
Yes.
I have found that actually takes significant reflection. And one resource is in nonviolent communication is something I use a lot. But you can go to NVC, like nonviolent communication, on like just Google it, list of needs.
Okay.
And it will come up with, it has this huge list of needs. Like say, I want to feel respect. Brainstorming what respect looks like. There's tons of different ways that respect could have different manifestations. But if I've got to first get the core thing, and then I can come up with lots of options for how to do that. So,
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Laura, it's been so good to talk with you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hey, I think Laura has a good chance of making some headway with Hope. And we were able to get a lot from hearing her work through the situation. So let's review what I'm hoping you take away from this session. First, tension is normal, and it takes two or more. Resist the temptation to blame it all on yourself or the other person. You both have needs, and the starting place to resolving a conflict is figuring out what those needs are. I've got a link in the show notes to a nonviolent communication list of needs resource I highly recommend. Second, role play as the other person. Just like you haven't fully identified your own needs in the conflict, the other person probably hasn't figured out their own clearly either. But putting yourself in their place, actually speaking in their voice, can help you pinpoint some of their needs much more clearly. It's amazing how often this simple exercise leads to a light bulb moment for people in conflict coaching sessions. Of course, you can't know what they're really thinking or what they'd actually say, but tap into what you already know about their personality, their communication styles, and things they've already said to better understand their needs. Third is to brainstorm your options. Put them all on the table, from the obvious to the obviously not going to work. Don't skip anything. We want to make sure we've got every possibility in front of us before we start ruling things out. Because sometimes the option we've already tried, or the one we think is impossible, can be the best option. Maybe it just needs a little adapting to work. And finally, look for an approach that sees the resolution as a negotiation rather than a competition. Try to create a situation where both of you can feel safe expressing your needs. Maybe that's in writing. Maybe it's in person with a neutral third party in the room. Or maybe, like Laura, you know the other person needs to have an ally in the room in order to safely express themselves. In important conflicts, the best resolutions allow both parties to have their needs respected, if not entirely met. That's where triaging your needs can be helpful as well. What are the things you absolutely need to have in order to feel okay with how things are resolved? What are you willing to give a little on? Try to find out what the other person's priorities are as well. Thanks for joining me today. If there's someone in your life who might benefit from listening to this episode, please share it. Because, as I always say, it's not a question of if, but when we're going to experience conflict, and we do much better when we're prepared. The Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily Taylor is a BYU radio podcast. I'd love to connect with you on social media. Find me on Facebook and Instagram at Conflict Coach with Dr. Emily, where I'm sharing more ideas for working through conflict. And if you or someone you know has a conflict that you'd like to discuss on the podcast, send me an email to conflictcoach@byu.edu. And next time, I'll be coaching Sarah, who's at an impasse with a childhood friend. I hope you'll join me.